So I just dove into work. And that's not a good remedy. All that does is just prolong whatever's going on as far as you recognizing, hey, I'm really hurt here. I need to seek some help. But a lot of people, I think it's foolish pride that won't allow you to open up and talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm really struggling. It was too much. It was too
Mm.
much to bear. And I was like, you know what? I'd probably just be better off gone out of here. So when I had the pistol in my mouth, I had my finger on the trigger. And just as I was about to pull it, everything went dark in my office. And I'm in a 30,000 square foot facility where you can hear the HVACs. And I didn't realize at the time that it was a divine intervention. I just thought, wow, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I'm going to just go on about my business like this never happened. And I asked God, I was like, well, why did you come for me? And all I can hear is he said, I have you purpose. You're too foolish to realize it, but I've got something for you planned. So you got to stay the course now.
There are moments in life that change us forever. Sometimes they come through unexpected loss, trauma, or struggles so deep that we wonder if we will ever find our way back. But usually, our darkest moments become the source of our greatest purpose. In this conversation, we talk openly about mental health, trauma, and resilience. My guest, Sy Alli, a suicide attempt survivor, is now a mental health advocate, author, and chaplain who has dedicated his life to helping others navigate life's darkest storms. Having personally battled severe PTSD and survived a suicide attempt, Sy understands firsthand what it means to feel lost. His book, Out of the Storm, was written for those who feel adrift in depression, trauma, or despair. A reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope is still available. If you or someone you love is struggling with depression, PTSD, or feelings of hopelessness, I hope this conversation reminds you that you are not alone and your story is not over. You can definitely change the game. So let's dive in, shall we? Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well, Mama Terra's podcast. Each week, we will explore topics that impact your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health through inspiring transformation stories. Here, you will find practical guidance and actionable strategies to apply in your daily life. I'm your host, Ana Rezende, author, health coach, and speaker. I'm here to help you protect your energy, strengthen your well-being, and thrive through life's transitions. Speaking of life transitions, I would love for you to go to Amazon and check my book, Living Your Best Life in College, which I wrote as a guide for young adults transitioning from high school to college. If you are a student, a parent, a teacher, or someone who cares about well-being, this book might be a game changer. Now, let's dive in and discover all the different ways you can feel well. Vista transcende, levita. Good morning, Sy.
Good morning.
Welcome to Good is What Makes You Feel Well.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Excellent. So for us to start our conversation, I would like to ask you what, in this moment of your life, makes you feel well?
Oh, it's just being impactful in other people's lives. That is my mission. When I became a minister, God didn't make it too complicated for me. He knew I was a simple guy. So he said, just go out and be impactful on other people's lives. And that's what I strive to do right now.
Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. We'll talk more about how you impact people's lives later. But tell me now how this concept of feeling well and wellness in general, how this concept has evolved throughout your life.
I believe it's about more than just being physically well. That was the first part of my journey, was the physical restoration, but that wasn't necessarily the most important part. I think the important part for me was the spiritual and mental restoration for me. So I'm in a much better place right now. If we would go back 10 years ago or so, that would not be the case. And it really just, it wouldn't be. I'm in a much smoother, much more slower pace in my life right now. And I work with kids, I work with schools all over Monterey County, California. So I'm just at a really good point in my life, a beautiful spot for me after 64 years. I'm actually in a really good place right now.
That's excellent. So you said you started with the physical, and most of the people that I talk to say that wellness for them started with the physical, which is an important part. We cannot
Yes.
forget that, right?
Right.
So we
Yeah.
were given this physical body for a reason, and we have
Right.
to take care of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, but I do understand that the evolution is for us to start seeing the other dimensions of health
Right.
because they are all equally important,
They
right?
are. They are.
Yeah. So tell me, how was your beginning there with the physical? What was for you? It was exercising?
Oh, yeah. I went to the Air Force right out of high school in
Mm.
1979, and I ended up being stationed over in Europe. I was in Germany, and I went into our base gym, and I saw a gentleman by the name of Willie Bell, who was a power lifter, throwing around incredible weights. And I said, I want to do this. And
Ooh.
I'm sure he looked at me as a string bean guy, only 145 pounds. He was like, okay, I'll work with you. So he did. And I became a nationally ranked power lifter back in the 80s. And
Wow.
that started the physical transformation. And then I became a professional wrestler when I got out. So everything for me has always been based off of physical fitness. It
Mm.
wasn't until later that I just, found out, well, your spiritual fitness is probably more important. Your mental fitness is probably, so physical, I put down like number 3 or so. But I started my workout routines, early on. And then I went away from it. I got married, had kids, I got divorced, and I got divorced again. And then I found myself not looking at the physical thing. My body had just grown weary. It looked like I was much older than I really was. So it's always played a part. And it didn't come back until after I really started figuring out what's going on with the mental health aspect. And then I
Mm.
really started working on the physical aspect of it again. And I haven't stopped. I still work out to this day.
That is so, so important. So tell me, you said you started paying more attention to your mental health. How was that particular journey for you?
That was a reckoning because I had struggled with PTSD. I mean, and I knew it was PTSD because I was able to go back and see what the sequence of events in my life that happened that really brought me up to the point where I had a gun in my mouth in 28
Mm.
or 2015, excuse me.
Oh.
Um, that was definitely hinged. I knew I had to make some changes. That reckoning took a while. I tried to take my life in April 18th to be exact, 2015. And at that point, Anna, I was just a shell of myself, not just physically, but I mean, mentally. I was in such a dark situation. And sometimes when people are depressed and they have PTSD, it's exhausting because they work hard to make sure that nobody knows what's going on with you. If people
Mm.
even got close, my little defense mechanisms would come up and I'm like, oh, I'm okay. So I just pushed myself into my work even more to get away from the mental aspect of it. But it catches up to you sooner or later.
Mm. I know. So the event of the gun in your mouth was during the time you were serving?
If you are enjoying this episode but don't yet understand the multidimensionality of health, I created a free ebook to help you. It's a simple yet insightful few-page book you can read in less than 10 minutes. The ebook link is in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
No, that came later. I went into the military in 1979, right out of high school. I got out in 1986, and I went back
Okay.
in. I went back in 1999 and got out in 2003. So
Okay.
I had two separate stints, but it wasn't. My father passed away in 2005. My father-in-law passed away in 2009, and I got
Mm,
divorced in 2014.
mm,
And I was a nomad. I couldn't be in one place. I was a protection agent. I was a dignitary and executive protection agent. So I traveled globally constantly for many years. So I was used to just moving around and going here and going there. So I just dove into work. And that's not a good remedy. All that does is just prolong whatever's going on as far as you recognizing, hey, I'm really hurt here. I need to seek some help. But a lot of people, I think it's foolish pride that won't allow you to open up and talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm really struggling. So I was exhausted at night when I got home from working in the day and trying to put up this facade that, oh, everything is okay with me. But it wasn't. So if you come to that at some point, unless you're able to open up with it. And obviously now, I went through my seminary training in 2020 and just really turned my whole life around. But it took, when I walked away, let me just take you back. That day, it was a regular work day, even though it was a Saturday. Working in the cannabis industry, that was another thing. I had become the first security executive to work in the legal cannabis space. So I
mm,
became the first corporate security director for a company called Dixie Brands, which was in Denver. They made edibles, cannabis based
mhm,
edibles.
mhm,
And I was their, chief security agent. I was the one who put the programs and policies in place to make sure that we were in accordance with the state of Colorado as far as the legality of it.
mhm,
So it was a stressful job to begin with. It was a very high visibility job.
mm,
My CEO would have meetings with the governor, with the mayor of Denver, and I'd be
mm,
right there with them. So it was a high profile job. But even through that, I was struggling, but I would not let the cameras even get a hint of my struggles. So I put
mhm,
I don't want to say a brave face because it's really a foolish face now that I look back at it,
mhm,
but I was able to mask it. That was a really big position coming off of, being separated, going through a divorce, just being crushed financially. It was too much. It was too
mm,
much to bear. And I was like, you know what? I'd probably just be better off gone out of here, not taking into account that I had three kids. My mom was still alive. I mean, I had a whole family and whole, group of friends and colleagues that really cared about me. But when you're in that position, you're not thinking about how people think about you. And you're also not thinking about what the repercussions are when you take your life. You don't realize everybody that cares about you are just, they don't know what they can't make of. They can't make heads or tails out of it because they're going to say, we didn't see this in Sy. He was a happy go lucky, type of guy. I was an alcoholic, but I don't think I was a raging alcoholic, but I was an alcoholic nonetheless. So there was a lot of things that had to happen. And in that room is when I had my divine intervention. And I didn't even know it at the time. I didn't know that God had gotten in my office to dispatch my father and father-in-law down, who had already passed away. So when I had the pistol in my mouth, I had my finger on the trigger. And just as I was about to pull it, everything went dark in my office. And I'm in a 30,000 square foot facility where you can hear the HVACs. And I'm in my security office where I have a bank of about 75 cameras. I could see every inch of that facility. So I waited for the employees to leave that day, made sure the facility was secure. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I had a big old bottle of Grey Goose vodka that I pulled out of the refrigerator. And I never even uncorked it because I had resolve, man. I was like, okay, I can do this. I don't even need the alcohol. So I left the bottle untouched. But when I thought I pulled the trigger, everything was dark. And then all of a sudden, there's two figures. I'm not even sure where I'm at this point. I'm like, wow, did that happen? Did I take my life? Am I in some sort of purgatory status? Because my office is completely dark. There's no air moving. I had my laptop on and had some jazz music running. There was nothing. I didn't know where I was. It was just completely dark, no air moving. And then I can feel two figures in this space with me. And the only reason I knew it was my dad and my father-in-law is I could smell the aroma of their bodies.
Mm.
And that was something that said, okay, man, am I gone? Am I with them? Or their chest? Are they mad at me? What's going on? But they were both asking, why are you doing this? And my father-in-law made a statement. He said, son, do you realize what you're going to leave behind in your wake? And Anna, after I think I muttered, I don't even know because I didn't know where I was. And just as I was thinking that, this big old time projector screen drops down and I can hear the old reel to reel. Remember the old cameras when you're watching these home movies? Everything is in front of me, my whole life, from being born to get married, being in the military, this and that. And then I was able to watch myself on this projector. I actually watched myself take my life.
Wow.
And I watched the blood splatter and I watched my body, jerk back. And then after a while, my CEO, who I reported to, maybe finally found the office key because I was the only one that had the key and he had a key. This was the most secure office in the facility. I could see them come in and I could see their anguish. I could see them, my family being notified. I could see my kids going through everything and like going through rehab, trying to figure out what happened to dad. And it was just, I didn't know. I was scared to absolute death. I did not know what was going on. And then both my father and my father-in-law asked me, is this what you really want? And I think I murmured, no. And then all of a sudden, the lights came back. I can hear the HVAC. Every camera lit up one by one, everything on my console. And it was 9 p.m. When I sat down and I know I had that pistol in my mouth, it was 4 p.m. So 5 hours had elapsed. And I don't know where I was transported to, but I was scared to death. And I had urinated all over myself, Anna. I mean, I
Oh
was
my
soaked and wet.
gosh.
It was fortunate for me that I didn't eat anything because I really had a nervous stomach that day. So I didn't eat. I might have had just maybe like a bagel or something, but I had just lost everything. And then I came to and I'm looking around and I see my Glock is on the desk. The round is out of the chamber and it's sitting on my desk. And I was like, okay, somebody just pranked me. I'm looking at my cameras. I'm scared to leave my office. I'm like, something, I couldn't figure it out. And I ended up going home and my roommate was an executive with Wells Fargo. He had a place in Cheyenne, Wyoming, too. So he wasn't there. So I was glad I didn't have to say anything to him. And I got back home Saturday night and I just sat at my couch and I was wondering what had happened. I said, I didn't drink anything. There was no drugs. There was nothing prior to me attempting to take my life. And I was able to walk away from it. And that was 2015. So I didn't quit drinking or anything, Anna, but that episode left me thinking, man, I'll never try to take my life again. I didn't realize at the time that it was a divine intervention. I just thought, wow, I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I'm going to just go on about my business like this never happened. But the one thing for sure is that I never had an inclination to take my life again. And then 5 years had elapsed. And in 2020, I got a DUI. Once March 1st, 2020, I was living up in Puyallup, Washington, in between Tacoma and Seattle. And I
Mm-hmm.
got pulled over. I got arrested. I got cuffed. I got put in an orange jumpsuit. And then friends came and bailed me out like 2 hours later. And I told my friends that night, I said, I'm never drinking again. And I know how many times people have said that who are drinkers. So I'm sure my friends they wanted to laugh, but they didn't say anything. They just kind of nodded. And that was the last drink I had on March 1st, 2020. I picked up my mom's Bible and started reading it. And it seemed like so many things were happening quickly, trying to be sober again. I picked up my mom's Bible and I started reading and I'm reading. And then, like a few days after the DUI, I had an approach. I mean, it was God in my bedroom telling me that was me 5 years ago. That was not any sort of figment of your imagination. And I asked God, I was like, well, why did you come for me? And all I can hear is he said, I have you purpose. You're too foolish to realize it, but I've got something for you planned. So you got to stay the course now. So I started writing and kept writing. And
Oh
I
my
wrote
gosh, I
the
have
initial,
goosebumps.
yeah, I started writing, Anna. And then lo and behold, last year, Out of the Storm came out. And it's not like a full blown autobiography. It's a memoir. I didn't want to make it like 300-400 pages because I really wanted young people to read this book. And I know my cutoff because I work in the school systems. My cutoff is like middle school. I did a book signing last year in a middle school. I asked the principal, I was like, are you sure they're going to be able to handle this? Because I go into the specifics of my suicide and how I was setting everything up. And the principal was like, the kids need to hear your story. Yo, go talk about it. Go talk life into the kids. And I told them about it. The looks from the kids were, oh my goodness, maybe I'm feeling something. And here is this guy who we look at as like our Superman in these schools who struggled and who was a hair trigger away from taking his life. So it's been a journey. It really has.
Oh my
I ended up
gosh.
getting my certifications and degrees in chaplaincy. It was during the pandemic. I didn't have any money, so I took some online courses, Anna, and I ended up getting my chaplaincy certification. So I ended up in 2020, I was working as a chaplain at a cancer treatment facility up in the Pacific Northwest. So that started the ministry run. And so it's it's been a long journey, but I've been privy to do a lot of things like being an actor, being a professional wrestler, being a university lecturer on, dignitary protection and advanced planning and hostile foreign environments. I actually was able to do a lot, but I took everything for granted. I didn't realize what God was setting me up, why he was sending me all over the world, and looking, being with people, in other cultures and being able to break bread with people in Africa, in Asia, in Australia, and being in all these places. It was an incredible run, but I didn't see all that. When you're in a dark place, you don't look at all the good things. You're just looking at all the negative things that's going on. And that's how you go further and further down.
Yeah, yeah, I see you. Oh my gosh. And I think what this principal at the middle school did was wonderful
Yeah.
because, yes, the rates of suicide are incredibly high in this younger generation. It is so important to bring up the subject and tell them they are not alone, that this happens more frequent than we think, right?
Yes.
And they need
Yes,
to seek help.
they do. And they don't know, Anna, because prior to coming to California, I had left the Pacific Northwest in 2022 and I went to Pittsburgh, PA, because we were going to start filming my documentary. It was originally called Project Resurrection. But then when I got to Pittsburgh, I didn't really have the money to fund the documentary. And the young folks that were helping me were doing it pro bono. And I couldn't figure out how to secure the funding. So I started working at a high school just outside of Pittsburgh, PA, called Penn Hills High School. And it was almost like the movie The Breakfast Club, where these kids had to come to school on a Saturday morning. These were the kids that, skipped school,
Mm,
whatever, truancy, the whole bit. And they had to come to school. And this nonprofit that I was working with, Community and Family Builders out of Pittsburgh, got slots for youth mentors to come into the high school to help the kids. So me and another colleague, Tawana Gatewood, I talk about her in the book. We're in this Saturday morning classroom, and these kids have their hoodies on, they got their sunglasses on, and it's snowing, it's January, and we just couldn't get to the kids. And I remember Tawana telling me, she said, Sy, you really need to tell these kids about your story. And I'm like, really? You think so? She was like, you need to. So we sat the kids down in our little community circle. And we talked about everybody. And when it came to me, I told them, I said, I'm a chaplain now, but I'm a suicide attempt survivor. And I started talking about the day I was trying to take my life. All of a sudden, their hoodies came off, their sunglasses came off, and it was like a floodgate of things came out of these kids. We found out that they had just lost one kid to a gun violence who did not make it for the start of that school year. This young lady who was a sophomore, Anna, she rolled her sleeve up and showed me the cut marks on her arm. So these kids were like, oh, we've got somebody who's been through what we're going through or what we're thinking. So then that opened everything up. It was a successful program, but I knew God was calling me out to California for some reason. I mean, when I came out here in like April of 2022, and I was working for a small security company, but they really didn't have the money for my position. They didn't have the money for housing for me. So I slept on a couch in my office in Prudendale, California for 2 months. And then I finally left the company and they were going to give me a ticket to go back to Pittsburgh or go back to the Pacific Northwest. And I told them, I'm staying here. They're like, why? You got nobody here. But I ended up going to a veterans homeless facility in Marina. It's called the Veterans Transition Center. I just walked in there. I didn't have any money. I thought, man, this is the end. And I got there with all these veterans, and every veteran, every color, every shape, every size, every denomination you could think of. All these veterans were at this facility at the old Fort Ord Army base in California. And I thought that was it for me. I was like, wow, I got no job. I got no money. And then it was God was like, well, wait a minute. You are a chaplain, right? I said, well, yeah. He was like, well, go be a chaplain. You're here. This is why you were here. You were here to work with all these veterans who are battling things that you can't even imagine. You might have had PTSD and been a suicide attempt survivor, but these guys are going through different things too. So just as I thought, I'm thinking of Job, oh man, I'm just, God has forsaken me. And I'm thinking everything is done. And that was the beginning of a foundation that I built out here of working with veterans. I was eventually able to work myself out, and I applied to a job, Anna, for this company called Elevo,
Mm-hmm.
Elevo. And I was like, what is this? And it was for a youth coach, youth
Mm-hmm.
mentors in their schools in Salinas, California. One of my housemates in the shelter was 80 years old. He was a former Navy guy. He had had multiple DUIs, so he had a car, but he couldn't drive it. So I would drive him to his appointments. And when I was lamenting, how am I going to apply for this job? He was like, well, you take my car. He's like, you drive me around anyway. So I went and I applied for this job and I got it as a youth coach at an elementary school. And then I got promoted to site success manager. So now I'm site success manager for Elevo. So Elevo does social emotional learning in school districts all over California. We're in schools for lunch recess. We do, exercise and games that are based off of social emotional learning, making sure that you're mentally ready to play a game, that you know about teamwork and teaching them about young leadership. So we're in all of these schools. I got promoted. And before my buddy, who was in the homeless shelter, before he went down to like San Luis Obispo, he's like, take me to the DMV. I got some business too. So I took him there and he was like, come in with me. I'm like, I can wait in the car. He's like, no, come in. He gave me his car. He gifted the car to me. And I was like, you're
Wow.
kidding me. He was like, no. He was like, I watched you work with all these veterans and you helped me out. He was like, I'm 20 some years older than you, but you kind of showed me a way out of my drinking. So it was like things had to come in place, but they did. And I got this
Wow.
job and I'm still ministering. I work at several personal care homes around Monterey County as a chaplain. So I've come a long way
Oh
to really
my
be
goodness.
come a long way to where I'm at right now. And the book has been interesting because, I was thinking bestseller, and then it was like, no, I just want this book to be impactful. If it becomes a bestseller, that's good. But I want people to read it and like, wow, if he went through this, maybe I can find a way through this as well. So I joke and tell people the book is a gift that keeps giving. I'm like, if you read it, you might know somebody who wants to read it. Please give it to them and let them read it. So I'm in a much better place now. In 2025, I just spoke at a veterans event in San Jose. I'm trying to get with the Speakers Bureau. So I'm just trying to get like recorded speaking events. But I love working with Alevo because our company is really young. Our company culture is young. Our youth coaches are younger than my youngest child, Sy, the fourth, which is 25 years old. So I'm working with
Wow.
a bunch of young coaches. I'm in the schools with, 1 through 8. We do middle school as well. And I'm getting to be impactful. And when I thought originally I was going to be a pastor in a church, one of my pastor mentors said, Side ministry is so large. There's so many things you can do to rep God. You don't be just thinking that you're going to be a pastor. She joked with me. She was like, I need counseling for my congregation. So I'm not even going to tell you that this is going to be the best fit for you, but just let God lead you to where he's taking you. And he's taken me to this mentorship position. And I got to be careful in schools. I mean, I know the church and state thing. So, but I firmly believe now that mentoring is a part of ministry. I don't care how you slice or dice it, but it really is, without maybe talking about scriptures or your faith base. You're still helping people.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
still trying to mold and shape these young souls into being good human beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's important to know the difference and to be careful with the language
Yes,
because what we want is not to push anybody away.
right.
So we need to speak in a language that brings everybody together. And that is the most
Yes,
important thing.
absolutely.
Yeah. Because there are
Absolutely.
so many
It is.
paths that lead to the same point. Yeah.
I'd like to think so. Absolutely. I mean, it's very enlightening. I never, being a dignitary and executive protection agent, and traveling all over the world and protecting folks like former Vice President Al Gore, former Russian President, the late Mikhail Gorbachev. I worked security for him. I worked with Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I mean, all these fascinating people I got to work with
Wow.
and travel the globe. Now I'm working with young people. So
But
I
isn't
like.
isn't that interesting how you said that God gave you all those experiences to bring this perspective to your life,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And it's all a preparation, all this worldview and viewpoints and different things to make you able to bring this richness of experience to those kids.
yes. And
It
I
is
had,
amazing.
yeah, I mean, years ago, I traveled with a very prestigious foundation. This group would travel all over the world and do things like agriculture or anything, to help, say, over in South Africa, they help these kids who were being raped and abused in these schools, and they help, fund these juvenile court systems and things like that. And even that, I was joking with my pastor and we were talking about mission trips. I'm like, I've been on mission trips.
Hmm.
It wasn't the necessarily the spiritual focus, but the giving and helping, groups and, it's folks that don't have it need things and being able to help them. That kind of prepared me, for the ministry role as well. So God knew what he was doing, Anna. He really did. He was kind of laying the seeds, but sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. And that was definitely me. Now I realize, wow, he was showing me all these great things and I wasn't picking up the hint. So I'm able to talk to folks about that now and able to say, hey, if you're feeling these different things, you get to experience a beautiful sunrise or sunset at some place around the world, go do it. And
Hmm.
I'm encouraging folks to get out of your shell and just go view this beautiful world while we still have it, because I'm convinced we're tearing this earth down piece
And
by
that
piece.
is, yeah. And that is another thing that brings so much anxiety to this new generation because they
Yes,
foresee this future that is so unpredictable with all the losses that we are having.
Yes.
And that is another thing that we need to bring hope to them and
Yes.
show them what is possible for us to do right now to
Absolutely.
prevent and to actually have a beautiful future, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's I was in one of my schools, and this I believe she was in sixth grade. The kids come to me. I don't know if they can sense my spirit or whatever it is, but they're drawn. So she came to me and
Your
she said,
energy, man.
I
They feel
think it
your
is.
energy.
She said,
Absolutely.
Coach Sy, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure. She was like, why are adults your age so stupid? And I
Good
said, wait. I said, what? I said, why would you ask that? She was like, because I look on TV and it just seems like people are mad at each other, and it just seems like people are angry with each other. And she said, it's people your age. I said, okay. I said, you know what? That's very intuitive. And I had to explain to her what intuitive was. I said, but yeah, you're right. I said, honestly, I gotta apologize on you on behalf of adults, because we're not being God or like, we're not being Christ like, we don't love our neighbors as we love ourselves. I mean, just some of these simple covenants that was made for us. We don't like this person because of their skin color. We don't like this person because of their sexual preference. We don't like this person because they're not Christian or whatever. Maybe they're Muslim or whatever. And I told the kid, I was like, I don't know. I said, I apologize. I'm like, I'm trying to do my little part. And the kid starts laughing. She was like, yeah, you're good. I said, but yeah, but you called me out too. So I gotta make sure we hold everybody accountable. And we sat and we talked for a while. But if kids see this, you know it's bad. I'm afraid I have a 4-year-old grandbaby. I don't know what this world holds for her, Anna. I really don't. My faith says, okay, this is gonna get better. And I hope it does. But our kids are even wondering this. And if a sixth grader comes up and asks you that, you know how kids are thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I think the job you were doing is so, so necessary. It is so incredible to have people doing this work because we need to give those kids hope and
Yes.
we need to show them the way through
Yes. They
because
need to
they
see.
are really lost. Like you said, they are losing their friends to suicide,
Yes.
and nobody is actually working with them and teaching them how to process the whole thing. So my daughter went through that. She
Did
lost
she?
two friends from
Uh,
suicide, and she was devastated for so long.
sure.
It is really hard for them to process and to understand because, like you said, one of the kids that killed himself, he was a happy kid. Nobody knew
Yeah.
that he was going
Right.
through dark things.
Yes.
I think in their minds, they kind of question themselves, why didn't I see that? Why didn't I help him? It's a mixture of emotions and guilt and shame and so many questions. It's hard for us as adults
Yes.
to understand. Can you
Especially with
imagine
kids.
what goes, yeah, into
Yeah.
their,
Especially with kids.
yeah,
And they feel like their voice isn't heard. So that's why I'm really, attuned when I go in. And even our coaches are young and they're going through some mental health things too. I've even pulled a couple of our coaches aside and said, hey, I don't broadcast it, but I'm a counselor. I mean, if you ever want to talk, feel free. And a lot of employees bought the book, and I told them, I was like, if you read it, you like it, you might know of somebody, share it with them. So young people need to know. I didn't realize, and they don't really keep, like for veterans, I think they say right now 17.9, veterans take their lives per day. I don't even think that's an accurate description. I think it's higher than that
mm-hmm.
because a lot of this stuff goes unreported. And this is only what Veterans Administration is able to verify. I don't even know if they take those sort of polls or get the data for young people
Mm-hmm.
who take their lives. I would love to figure out what that number looks like. I don't know if it's equal to veterans, but you hear more about veterans with PTSD. You don't hear about young people who lost a parent and don't know how to go through the steps of grief. So
Mm-hmm.
they're just stuck at depression. They don't go through, bargaining. They don't go through, the acceptance part. They're just stuck in one gear on the grief process. And I had a kid, my first school, and when I first went to Mission Park Elementary, it was almost like a scene out of Kindergarten Cop. I'm there, and these kids are looking at me. They're looking at my physique, and they're wondering who this guy is. But once they got used to me, I found out one kid who was bullying. He was in kindergarten. He was bullying the rest of his classmates, and the coaches knew that I was a chaplain, and they knew that I could work with kids. So they would give me the kids who were problematic, and I pulled this kindergartner aside, and we're just sitting and talking, and he just blurts out, "My dad died 2 weeks before I started school." And he just blurted it out. He was like, "I think it's my fault." And I was like, "Whoa." I was like, "Why do you think it's your fault?" He said, "Because he's not here." And so I had to sit down and I talked with him. And I said, "You can't blame this on you." I said, I wanted to bring God in so much, but I had to be careful. But we talked. And then I think he went home and he told his mom, Coach Sy was able to talk to me and I felt better. So she comes to the school and she gets with the principal. She was like, "Where's this Coach Sy?" And I hear on the radio, "Coach Sy, can you come up to the office?" So one of the parents wants to talk. I said, "Oh, I'm in trouble. What did I do?" So I go into the office and the woman looks at me. She was like, "You're Coach Sy." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She was like, "Whatever you're doing with my son, please keep it up." And the
Oh my
principal looks,
goodness.
the principal. So after the mom leaves, the principal and her and I became very close. She was like, "I got school counselors in here. They get paid a heck of a lot of money. And then here you come rolling in here. And all of a sudden you're able to talk to these kids and they're able to open up to you." She said, "Keep it up." She was like, "Do what you need to do to help these kids because we need more people like you." And that just kind of summed up everything that goes on in these schools. If you dig deep enough, and some of our
Mm-hmm.
coaches are too young, they're just growing up themselves. So they're not far from, some of our middle school kids' age. So I'm able to kind of sift through that and see. And then that's when I knew, wow, there's these kids have things going on. We need to be mindful of the, maybe any sort of points that we can see that would let us know, hey, this child's going through some things. So I know the bullying and the behavioral things are just kind of like a cover for what's really
Mm-hmm.
going on with some of these young people.
Absolutely.
So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being able to be impactful. And as you asked me, the main thing is just impactfulness, is making somebody's day just a little bit better. If I didn't walk in, if I didn't give them a high five or a fist bump, or they asked to see my biceps and, let me flash a bicep pose at them. But yeah, it's God knows what he's doing with me. He has me just where he wants me at. And I believe
Yeah.
it's working with younger people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It is so incredible when we finally find our purpose, right?
Yes. And it took so long, though. I said, "God, why did you wait so long?" He
It
was like,
happened
"No,
with me
there's no
too.
time. There's no time frame on this. When he
It's,
does his thing, you can be old, you can be young. I just happen to be a little bit older, but I'm
yeah,
glad it's happening, and I love the transition and
it's
transformation because I'm able to help others, and then see the work that you can put help with others.
absolutely. And it's always divine time.
It is.
With me was the same. I was getting prepared for the first half of my life to make the transition at 50. And now I know I found my purpose and I'm on a mission.
Good for you. I
Yeah.
love that.
So we are in this together.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I'm hoping that folks can kind of wake up a little bit and be able to help these kids because I can't imagine, being a kid and seeing what's going on. And there's so much with social media and now artificial intelligence, and we don't know fact from fiction right now. I mean, it's scary times.
It
I mean,
is.
I don't know how the kids feel about this, AI stuff, but it's real, it's legit.
Yeah, it was so different for our generation because when we were young, we didn't have access. We didn't get all the information. So of
No,
course, there was wars and bad things going on in the world
right.
the same way,
Sure.
but we didn't have access because it was
Right.
just, on the news
Yep.
later at night. We were not allowed to be in the room.
Right.
So we were able to just get shielded from the bad news. And
Yes,
it is important
it
because
is.
we don't need to know all that, especially them.
Yes. And I'm really glad what the schools are doing now, and is they're taking these phones away from the kids, and they have to put them in these locked pouches, and they don't have access to their phones now. And I thought when they first did it to some of my middle schools in Salinas that it was going to be, the kids were going to be in an uproar. The kids had separation anxiety for the first couple of days without their phone, but I think after a while there was no problem at all. I mean, just maybe limiting some of their access, and it's worked wonders in some of these school districts. I don't know, if other states do that, but the schools here in California in Monterey County, where I'm at, they started doing that. And they were just wincing, thinking that there was going to be, some blowback, but anything emergency wise, the school has, the backup plans and things for the kids. But turning their phones off and locking them up was brilliant. Whoever thought of that, I think is brilliant because that gives the kids more time to actually say what's on their mind or be able to concentrate on their work and not worry about the distractions that a phone can give. And it gives plenty of distractions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, that is a very good way of doing it. And I think we need to think about different ways of doing that in a larger scale because
Yes.
even us, right?
Yes.
It's a big, huge distraction. So sometimes I just want to check one thing. I got one message that I need to check, and then boom, a million things pop up, and all of a sudden it's past 10 minutes, and I said, whoa, I'm trapped.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
happens with all of us. So we
It
need to be
does.
really, really aware.
We do. We
Yeah.
do. And if the kids can handle it, I'm sure. I'm working on my second book, which has nothing to do with mental health. It's called The Corporate Smoke Jumper, which is based off of my protection details and my global travel. But I developed like a writer's block. So a colleague of mine said there is a place called Harris Ranch. It's like out in the middle between the central coast of California and the Central Valley. I'm going to take time off for Thanksgiving, go out there, turn my phone off, and try to finish the last 5 chapters of this next book. It's so easy to be distracted,
Hmm.
and you get caught up in what's going on with the government shutdown and what's going on here with air traffic control and not, I mean, and you get caught up in the world's events and things like that. And then
It's
you
too much.
you don't have the time to turn things off. So for like Thanksgiving, I'm taking a couple of days and I'm just going to turn my phone off and just write. And I have a colleague to thank for that because she was like, "You really need to get away." But she read my first book and she said, "What do you got, writer's block?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She was like, "You should take some time, turn your phone off. Here's a good place where I go." And
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to do. So, I mean, even us as adults have to be able to get away from our phone, get away from the TV screen, and just take some me time.
Yeah. And then
And that's hard.
connect with our
Yes.
intuition, right?
Yes. And it's
So,
not easy for adults. It can be difficult, but you got to make
mhm.
that time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think a very good option is to go immerse yourself in nature. And I
Yes.
think that is another thing those kids really need, just to be rooted in nature, getting to understand and appreciate, right? The beauty
Right.
and the natural world and be able to absorb the knowledge because
Yes.
nature is a big, huge teacher.
It is.
And they are so disconnected from it.
Oh, they are. They really are. See, a lot of these after school programs, we partner up. And I believe that, we have like these science groups that come in, and the kids seem really excited when they go out and do something with nature.
Hmm.
just like doing some of these schools have started these gardens where they have these garden clubs. And I was surprised that the kids really enjoyed that. I mean, now I live in Monterey County. Salinas area is known as the salad bowl of America. This is all agriculture,
Hmm.
everything. You can go from Salinas all the way down to South Monterey County, and you see nothing but ag fields. So a lot of these kids come from migrant families who work ungodly hours, and they don't have the parents around. So like after school programs and these clubs is crucial for these kids.
Hmm.
May go home and their parents are still working in the ag field. They're able to come and after school, and they have yoga classes for these kids.
Mm.
They have martial arts classes. Some of these programs to keep these kids occupied and keep them busy during the school day are just so incredibly important. And I can see that now, because a lot of my kids just they do not have access to their parents like all the time, so they can be very clingy. They come up and they hug. I mean, which you have to be careful with in school because you're not allowed
Hmm.
to really hug these kids. But some of them, they need a hug, so I give them a side hug just so they don't come right at you. But yeah, it's really important,
Yeah,
really
and that's
important.
another thing that is so hard because I understand the reasons for not allowing teachers to touch the kids, but they do really need, we
They
all
do,
need connection. We all
right?
need touch. It's so
Yeah,
important for character developing and all that. So
absolutely.
it is a shame that we got to this point.
Yes. Maybe
It
a
is a
handful of
shame.
people messed it up for the whole group here.
Yeah,
That's
truly.
unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. So, what an incredible journey and what an incredible work you do. And you are really being impactful. I am so pleased to know your story.
Thank you. I
It is
appreciate it.
important to
It
share
sounds like
it.
your journey's been very interesting as well.
Yeah, my journey was really interesting too. And it was all God led too. And there
Beautiful.
is
Yes.
so much magic. And it continues unfolding every day.
Yes. Yes. That's one thing one of my pastors, when I was writing, she was like, "You can't stop writing." She was like, "Your story will continue to go on." The end comes when God picks you up out of here and takes you away legitimately, not from your own hands, but from him. So she's like, "Keep writing." So you know what? That's what I was able to do with the book, because initially it was just an article, but then I turned it, into a whole book. So I was fortunate. I got really good advice, sound advice on how to proceed. I'm being led. I'm a servant. I mean, I'm here to
We
serve.
are all servants. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And that is the mission. The mission is to serve
it is.
with whatever gift you have. If you
Absolutely.
have the gift of word or the gift of hug or listening, those are all
Yes,
gifts.
they are. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that he's given them to me. And he tried to give them to me a long time ago. I just wasn't ready to accept them. So
But that
I'm a
is
slow
part of the
learner.
journey. But that is part of
Yes.
the journey too. Everything
Yes.
happens in the right time. It takes
Sure.
time to prepare us to do what we are doing.
True. True that. Absolutely.
So, yeah, but now that we are older, we can see that it's hard to
Yes.
see when we are in the midst of everything.
Right. And
But
wisdom, I finally feel like I have wisdom now. And I don't think I had that before. I mean, I'm able to really look at things now and just look with a discerning eye, and just trying to look at all aspects of everything before I say something. So it's a heck of a thing to finally get wisdom
it
and then be
is.
able to use that to help other people.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent. What a nice conversation. Sai, tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can buy your book, and if they want to work with you.
Yes. Well, you can go to my website, which is www.fitsquad. That's not FIT, it's PHIT. And that
Okay.
stands for prophecy, honor, integrity, and transformation. So fitsquad.com. The book is available at Amazon. It's available at Barnes and Nobles. It's available in hard copy, paperback, ebook, audiobook. It's available in French, Italian, Spanish, and Mandarin as
No
well. So
way.
it's a global book. Yeah,
No way.
I was able to get it printed in multiple languages
How
because,
that happened?
well, so my editor was like, you might want to think about some a different language because my church, my pastor is from Mexico City. We're a bilingual church, so fairly large Hispanic area. I mean, this is California, so
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
he was like, why don't you consider getting a book printed in Spanish? So when I went to my editor, they were like, well, you can do it in multiple languages. So I did Spanish, French, Italian, and then I did Mandarin. And it was my
Whoa.
pastor really got the ball. He was like, I just meant for you to do it in Spanish, not the rest of the languages. But I'm like, well, if I can do it in multiple languages, let me do it because mental health doesn't know any geographical locations. I
Oh,
mean, there's
absolutely.
people struggling everywhere.
Wow. I'm amazed. Wow.
Yeah. So you can go directly to the website and get it, or you can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. I've
Uh-huh.
seen it available, at discount book places. So it's out there. Just look for Out of the Storm.
Out of the storm.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'll put
Yeah.
the link in the show notes to your website and to Amazon to go straight
Thank
to it.
you.
And let's spread this word, man. That is,
Yes. It's the book. I think it's going to be one of those that doesn't pick up steam right away. But I'm surprised and grateful to see that a lot of the foreign languages, they're moving in other countries. So
that
I'm
is
I'm
so
blessed.
great.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
blessed.
And that is your legacy. It's going to be
It
for your
it is
grandkids, your grandkids. Who knows?
absolutely. When I was thinking about it, I was like, this is something that my this is definitely a family legacy. It is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep up the good work. I'm
Thank you.
so
You as
glad we
well.
connected.
Back at you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this
Thank you, and
conversation. It was
I
really
appreciate
enriching.
you. Appreciate you. God bless you.
Oh, God bless you too.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Sai.
right.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and want to go deeper, schedule a free discovery call with me to see if my personalized one-on-one coaching is a good fit for you. The scheduling link is in the show notes. See you in the next episode. Until then, remember, good is what makes you feel well.
Escala a montanha, contempla a vista, transcende, levita.